Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency. Auto, home, flood, business, 504-556-0809. Dave Miette, INSagency.com.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, tire siping, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
C&C Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, C&C provides patient-centered care for your entire family. C&C Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we'll cover all the home teams, the New Orleans Saints, LSU Tigers, Tulane Green Wave, and the New Orleans Pelicans. To break it down for us, two of the best we have in the state. Richie Mills of WGNO Channel 26 Sports, and also Glenn Guilbeau of Outkick.com are on our panel today. Gentlemen, welcome back to the show. Thanks so much for coming down on a day where you guys will be working late into the night because tonight is a Saints game night. Before we get started, tell us all about the great programming over at Channel 26.
You can catch us weeknights, 6 o'clock, 10 o'clock. You can catch me weekends, Saturdays at 6 and 10, Sundays at 5 and 10. Of course, Friday nights at 10:30 on NOLA 38, the CW. We have the WGNO Sports Zone. And then, of course, after that at 11, we have Friday Night Football, Season 32. We've hit the midway point, and it feels like I'm ready to retire already. But the replay is again at midnight on WGNO. So, again, and you can find all of this great content on WGNO.com. And
of course, you'll be out there tonight as well.
Yes, I will.
At the Dome. Glenn, welcome back. Thanks for the trek from Baton Rouge back to your home stomping grounds, the Rummel Raider graduate, and Missouri Tiger. Can I mention that as well?
That's right.
Here's the book, ladies and gentlemen. Have you purchased it yet? Of course, Everything Matters in Baseball, the Skip Bourbon story by Glenn Guilbeau. Glenn, tell us a little bit about it. You got a book signing or a book fair coming up soon, right?
Yes, Saturday, October 28th in Baton Rouge, 9 to 5 on the grounds of the state capitol. It's always good weather, and I went to that thing for years with my wife, before I had a book in it. Mm-hmm. And I'll be on a panel with some other authors from 10:45 to 11:45, and then at noon, there'll be a book signing of the Skip book, and you can buy the book on site and at Barnes and Nobles around the state.
Any signings coming up that you want to hype?
No, that's the only one at this moment now. Yeah.
And tell us a bit about Outkick.
Well, Outkick's a free website, outkick.com under Fox News, and Outkick covers college football, NFL, Major League playoffs, politics, everything you could want. Been working on the Astros playoffs lately, and the Phillies as well, ALCS and NLCS, and the Alabama-Tennessee game coming up this week. I'll be at the LSU-Alabama game in a couple of weeks, so covering a lot of college football.
There you go. All right, guys, let's get started. Let's talk a little bit about the Saints losers last week to the Texans in Houston, 20-13. Now at 500, 3-3, and I think the consensus of the media that covers this team, the media in the city and state, is you are who your record is, right? You're a 500 team. I've talked about it this week. I talked about it in this program. I talked about it in the off season. That on paper, this is a very good football team on paper. But the two issues that they have, and they've been having, is, again, the self-inflicted mistakes that we see, which, again, kind of goes to two things: discipline or lack of, and I got to be honest with you, football IQ. The ability to be able to, again, digest your playbook, know your playbook, do your job on game day when the lights are on, when, again, the pressure's on, to be able to do what you're supposed to do. And this team, at least certain members of this team, consistently have not been able to do that, and that's what we're seeing, what we've been seeing over the last 3 years, really. You're going back to the last year of Peyton, and again now, a year and almost 6 games into the Allen era. This is what we've been seeing. So your DNA is your DNA. Richie, I'll take you first. Is this a 500 team? Is this a team now that, again, after you've seen them for almost 3 years together, 2 years on, almost 2 years under Allen, that they are who they are?
Yes, I'll say that, because you hear the same things every week. It's miscommunication, it's effort, we're not on the same page, lack of execution, and then you see them play a team like the Texans, that's the best offense they've faced so far this year. Defensively, not the greatest defense, but someone that plays hard, takes on the identity of D'Amico Ryans. To have 430 yards of offense and only 13 points to show for it, I think is unacceptable, and you're going to lose more games than you're going to win in the NFL. I think that really the breakdowns in the red zone aren't helping, the self-inflicted wounds with penalties. I just think there's more errors that we talk about. There's more bad than good that we can talk about when we talk about the New Orleans Saints. And I think it is starting to sort of get exhausting in a sense, because like you said earlier, you look at their lineup, you look at the talent they have across the lineup, and again, they're dealing with the same thing: effort, miscommunication, lack of execution, and injuries are now starting to be an issue for this team. Which
has been a problem, again, for the last few years. Glenn, your take?
Well, I think you said it. People forget they were 500 in Sean Payton's last season, and they were a descending team at that point, and that might have been one of the reasons he left.
I think it was.
And what did the Saints do? And I wrote about this, not to do this before they did it. They went with the status quo. They kept they made the defensive coordinator the head coach, because he knew Sean Payton and coached with him, and he was good on defense. But questionable hire as a head coach, I said at the time. And then, worse than that, they kept the offensive coordinator as well. Really, Dennis Allen was a great defensive coordinator with the Saints. So where they really needed the coaching when Sean left, because we all knew he was the offensive coordinator, they needed an offensive coach to come in as, if not the head coach, the coordinator. And we're seeing that, and they're still a 500 team, and they weren't even 500 last year, but they definitely look, if they are improved this year, it's I think 9-7. I'm sorry,
9-8.
9-8 would be probably the best this team can do. That's where you're going, and Derek Carr does not look, as good as he did with the Raiders, and he was an above-average quarterback there. So. But more than Derek Carr, I think the offense just looks ill-conceived. I mean, he's throwing jump balls. The receivers aren't open, so you can't really blame him for that. But I just think they've had too many people with the Saints for too long, and they're going to have to address that after this season.
So continuity has failed.
Yes. Usually you get continuity after you've won a lot. They went with continuity after a 500 season. They're still 500.
Right. Okay. You don't hear teams start to call out each other early in the season. That happened last week. You had leaders on this team, again, indirectly calling out their teammates in the media, maybe not doing what they needed to do after that 34-0 shutout of the Patriots in terms of preparing for the next game against Houston. We heard Carr indirectly talk about the fact that his wide receivers were not running the correct routes, which is mind-blowing to me, because again, as we talked about before the show, and I talked about on the radio show yesterday, that these guys have had, just the young players, have had an off-season. They had last year's short off-season because they came in as undrafted free agents, or again, rookies. Had the full season, and a training camp full season, another complete off-season with a training camp, and now they're 6 games in. How do you not know what you're supposed to do on every single play? That's ridiculous. Then you have the issues with the offensive line, which again has look. And I understand Carr is shell shocked. He's the second coming to Archie Manning right now because every time he drops back, he's waiting to get hit, and that's got to affect you. But that surprised me last week. That there were multiple players coming out and not finger pointing, but again saying, hey, in this locker room, there are guys that are not doing their job.
Right. And it sort of makes you wonder where the disconnect is, and sort of what you were talking about. Numbers can't quantify what you're seeing on tape. When you put on the tape and you see Rashid Shaheed in the end zone looking up backwards for a football that's not going to be there, that's when you know there's an error. When you see Michael Thomas basically run out of bounds near the boundary, that's where you're starting to figure out where is the disconnect, and did they run the same play 3 or 4 times in a row? So again, it is confusing because you should not be in this position, and you feel like they should be much farther along than they are right now, but they're not. And given the problems, whether it's the offensive line, whether it's the quarterback, the receiver, no one's going to let you know because they are going to indirectly say things, but it's, again, those same things that I pointed out earlier that they keep saying each and every week. And at some point, you have to clean that up. This isn't sustainable at all. Given your division is bad, you just need to win the South to make the playoffs. But as of right now, they're not in a position to do that either. So again, teams are starting to exploit that, take advantage of it, and the schedule that we initially thought at the beginning of the year that was going to be somewhat favorable when you have the Lions, the Jaguars, those aren't so favorable anymore given the production of those teams. So again, whatever issue they have to fix it right now because this is not sustainable.
Yeah, you know, that was one of the worst offenses I've seen in a game that was won 34-0. I mean, they played awful on offense during that game. Even it just shows you how bad the Patriots are, and the Saints' record. It shows you how weak their schedule has been because they look bad in almost every win. Right. You know, so if they had
either way.
Yeah, exactly. So if they had a difficult schedule, they might be looking at just having one win right now. So and I think maybe some people on the team and with the staff got fooled by their record early on. But yeah, I don't remember them even in those 7-9, 3 straight 7-9 seasons under Peyton. They didn't look this consistently bad.
Let's talk offensive line. And they had a lot of money in the offseason to spend. Okay, it was. I mean, they redid contracts. They had more money than we've ever seen, really, in I guess the modern history of the Saints under the salary cap to be able to spend in the offseason. I had talked about a defensive end, pass rush defensive end. Grandison has bailed them out. He has played well. Again, there was no need. Hopefully, again, he stays healthy because there's still question marks with Peyton Turner, who's supposed to be able to come off of IR soon. Another one was the wide receiver because the unknown was Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas is healthy. Hopefully he stays healthy at this point. But the other one was offensive line. They went out and got Trey Turner. And a lot of us were excited. Okay, Trey Turner was at the end of his career, okay? But we were excited because maybe you could pull a little something out of him. You know, he's home, he's a Purple Knight, he's an LSU Tiger, and maybe coming in front of the home team, he's going to be able to play well. They go out and get Max Garcia. Kramer's a journeyman. That's it. All the problems they had with the offensive line last year, they didn't, again, upgrade that offensive line. They expected their guys to play better. Penning has been the worst offensive tackle in football in terms of being able to pass block. Ruiz has gotten better, but again, they didn't give him a contract until after, again, the season started. And that, you know, McCoy has struggled. It seems like everyone, Ramczyk, you got to prop him up every week to get him out there. They have struggled in terms of picking up blitzes. They've struggled in terms of their assignments. They've struggled. They've been physically beat, and they've been mentally beat in terms of their mistakes. You want to talk about where the problems on the offense starts? It starts up front.
It injured your quarterback.
Yes.
That's what it did. AC joint sprain that we don't know if it's still affecting him or not.
Looks like it sometimes, doesn't it?
It certainly did against Tampa, but again, no, you're right. I mean, Trey Turner, it feels like there was a lot of stock put into him, maybe not a lot of money, but a lot of stock. And once he leaves with the torn pectoral injury out for the year, you're sort of left wondering, okay, where's the next move going to come? And it sort of hasn't. I mean, and now you have James Hurst, Ramczyk dealing with a concussion. Pete can't stay on the field because, once again, his groin injury is keeping him off, health concerns with him. And then behind there, where's the experience? Where's the proven production that you get out of those first 3 guys? There's no there's nowhere really. They're not getting the push.
Lost Throckmorton to Carolina.
Right, and they run for 130 against New England, and you're starting to wonder, is it back? Is it going to get better? Because the Patriots defense, top 10 in the NFL at the time, so you're starting to wonder, is this where they're turning the corner? But it doesn't seem that way. 25 carries, 80 some odd yards last week, and then again, Derek Carr is still getting sacked. Their inefficiency on the offensive line is costing them greatly in this offense, and it's just you start to wonder when you think it's going to get better. But even last year, when they shut out the Raiders at home, I mean, they were 4-5 to close out the year after that. So again, you can look at a shutout win like you had over the Patriots and start to wonder, is the team going to turn the corner? But you really have to let the rest of the season remain to be seen.
Starting lineup for tonight, offensive line, Pete will move out to the left tackle position. Garcia will play left guard. McCoy will be at his center position. It'll be Ruiz at right guard, and then Cam Irving, the former first-round pick journeyman, is going to be your right tackle, offensive line.
Yeah, it looks like a combination of some of their draft choices, high draft picks in the offensive line, not working out, not coming around as quick. Then you add on bad off-season personnel, free agent decisions. It's just not working. But I remember them having struggles on the offensive line under Breeze too. But he was able to manage. Carr is not very mobile. He may be hurt too. So just everything's kind of going overboard at once.
Right, and look, first year in the system for him. The system was made for Breeze and developed under Breeze. One thing Breeze did was pre-snap read know where to go with the football. His receivers knew how to run the route. And then the other thing was he got the ball out quickly. And I said this for years. That offensive line was always lauded as one of the best ever. Well, when you're getting the ball out as quick as Breeze did, you're going to look good.
Yeah.
Carr is holding the ball.
Right.
Whether, again, he is unsure of, again, where his receivers are going to go. He doesn't understand the playbook. Or, again, he is just, again, worried about getting hit. There's a disconnect on all, really, again, with receivers, quarterback, and offensive line.
Yeah, especially when it's 4th and 4 and you run a bubble screen to Alvin Kamara, no one's out there blocking for him, and then it's a turnover on downs.
Yeah, it reminds me of some of Carl Smith's offense back in the day. You don't even send the receiver past the first down. You just throw it under the first down and hope he gets it. Yeah, that's not a percentage offense.
No, it's not. It's not, and it's an issue right now. And then it leads us to again, the other component of this, and that is the play caller. And look, I think that Pete Carmichael is very good at scripting the plays. I think he's probably good at putting a game plan in. I question whether he has the ability, when the heat is on, to make the proper calls or get out of proper calls and adjust to the adjustments of the defense.
Right. Exactly. That's what Sean did so well.
Yes.
And he didn't have to do it when Sean was there. So again, we go back to that was a questionable hire or retain.
Retention, right.
And then you start to feel like, even he said it this week, if it is too much, do you simplify it? But I think that the personnel you have doesn't make it that simple, given the fact that, you can give one person the ball. Oh, why isn't Taysom Hill getting his normal amount of carries? Why aren't you running the ball with Alvin more? Why aren't we feeding Mike Thomas? I feel like there's so many options available, and it's just some are being underutilized because, again, whether it's being too complex and not simple enough or the other way around.
But, Richie, it's the NFL. How do you dumb down your offense? I mean, they got guys that all they do is analytics, all they do is break down film, and again, if you start dumbing down things, then you just make it that much easier for the defense to be able to figure out what you're doing.
500 team.
and they're probably going to win tonight and then lose next week, and I think we're going to see that the rest of the year.
The rest of the way out, and we're going to get into that in a moment. Red zone problems. What's the issue? I mean, first of all, where's Jimmy Graham? I question personnel at times when they get in, and then play calling. What's your strategy when you get into the red zone, and how can you move the ball between the 20s and you get in the red zone, and again you just continue to fall apart. A lot of it starts up front. There's no doubt with the offensive line, but again there are a lot of dirty hands there as well.
People used to make the joke about Mike Thomas and the slant route, probably the most guaranteed thing since global warming. But, I mean, you don't see that often. You don't see Jimmy Graham in the red zone.
Where's Kamara?
I like the read option package with Taysom and Kamara. But, again, if you're only going to get 1-2 yards at a time, you sort of feel like you're beating a dead horse in that sense, and you're becoming predictable. So, again, it's so many different pieces that I feel like are factoring into their inefficiencies in the red zone. but it's also going to cost them football games.
Right.
And I think they start to recognize that. And again, 20-13, 430 yards of offense, 0 for 3 on red zone opportunities. That's not going to cut it. You're not going to win a playoff game, let alone your division, without successfully, playing well in the red zone.
Yeah, the best play callers show their ability in the red zone.
Right.
And that's what the Saints do not have.
And their quarterback has struggled in the red zone in his career. I mean, that's a fact. I mean, again, Carr has struggled in the red zone. And it's not like he's been devoid of talent where he's been. They had a lot of talent in Las Vegas. He's got a lot of talent here. It's just mind-blowing that, again, they get down there and they got to settle for 3. And then you got the inconsistency of Groupie now, okay? Again, who, again, is, he's like this team. He's hot and cold.
And again, they went with a rookie there. They had a solid veteran. I didn't really. I mean,
he's missed 1 kick this year.
Yeah, and preseason's different. He's obviously he missed the pressure kick at Green Bay. He missed a kick when they were behind last week. So that was a questionable decision, I thought, at the time. Again,
no disrespect to Taysom Hill, who got like 7 balls last week, 8 on 8 targets. But where's Jimmy Graham? I mean. Look, I understand he's a great runner, but how are you not utilizing him in some form or fashion on 3rd down and in the red zone?
It's worked twice so far. You did it in the preseason and you did it in the regular season. Where is it? Why stop?
Right.
He was the short yardage touchdown guy, for under Peyton for so long.
He did it everywhere he went.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's one thing. I'm not expecting this guy to be the Jimmy Graham of old, but I'm expecting him when you need 3-4 yards on a 3rd down that he's going to body up somebody, he's going to catch the football.
Yeah.
When you put him in the end zone, especially with all the talent you have out there, who are you going to double team? I expect him to be able to, again, use his body to be able to get open. And if that's not there, you still have Michael Thomas. You have Taysom Hill. I mean, it's just there's a plethora of riches in terms of the skill position players, but they can't seem to get it done on offense. Defense, they got a top defense, but you can't come out and play like you did last week against Houston, where you just sleep on the first half.
Yeah, too many explosive plays given up. C.J. Stroud was slinging it left and right down the field to Nico Collins, and you sort of thought to yourself, like, if the defense is going to hold up their end of the bargain, what's this game truly going to look like? Because again, New England, midway through the first quarter, you have no points, and the first points of the game of Tyrann Mathieu pick 6. And now you're dealing with an issue where you don't know if you have Tyrann Mathieu. There's also injuries across. You see Cam Jordan appearing on the injury report with a back, and you start to wonder, okay, what's wrong with him? Demario Davis in jeopardy of missing his first game with injury in 12 years, which is crazy. It's the captain of your defense.
Yes.
You need that guy on the football field. And while, yes, they are a top 5 defense, top 10 defense on paper, you start to wonder, are the injuries going to catch up to them? Is the age going to be a factor when they're on the field more than they absolutely need to be when the offense can't get it done? The inefficiencies on offense are starting to impact the defense, and I think you're seeing that. But again, yeah, the first half that they played against Houston, that should not happen.
Right.
17 first half points is really uncharacteristic of what you've come to expect from this team.
And a lot of
and even though you said they went to sleep in the first half, they still played well enough to win with a decent offense, with an average red zone offense. They win the game.
Yeah. Lazy play from Lattimore last week. And again, this is he was such a lockdown corner in the first few games of the season. You're saying, okay, this is going to be a year where Lattimore is going to come in. He's going to give them everything they need on that outside corner position. But I mean, again, he seems to play up to the competition, and you can't have that. I mean, Collins wore him out last week.
I think it was a combination of things because, like you just mentioned, played up to the level of his competition, and then the uncertainty. Is Houston for real? I think this was as big a test for Houston as it was with the Saints defense, because you don't know how good Nico Collins is until you see him match up against Marshawn Lattimore. So again, Jacksonville made the same mistake when they played Houston, and Nico Collins went off. Tank Dell went off in that game. And
they didn't have to deal with Dell last week.
Houston handed Jacksonville a loss that I don't think they were expecting. So again, I think it was just a matter of, is this offense for real? And then all of a sudden, before you realize it, they're behind you.
All right. 3-3, 6 games in. Been a lot of negativity on this panel today. Give me some positive. Give me something positive about this team for the fans going forward. Is there a way? Can they turn this around? Is this going to be the same thing week to week? 500, same self-inflicted wounds, same penalties that we're seeing again that continues to be able to kill drives, extend drives for the opposing teams. What are we going to see here?
I think there's been proven improvement. And I say that in a sense like sacks were a problem. Okay, sacks have gone down since then. They've been able to identify the problems that they've been having with their offense, and you trust that they're going to make the necessary adjustments. On a short week, that's going to be hard to tell, but I think there's too much time to really rule this team out of any playoff scenario that there is. And so I think that you got to trust that it's going to get better because, yes, the organization has had some sort of stability in the past, but again, from what we see each and every game, you just continue to scratch your head. They'll get healthier. They have so much time left.
And they're in a bad division.
Yes.
So, 9-8 might get them in the playoffs, and they have a good enough defense to keep them in some games or keep them in most games, and they can just get lucky in a couple of games. And they still have a weak schedule, and they have a lot of offensive talent. So, they could somehow win 9 games, and that'll get them in the playoffs. But, big picture, somebody has to make some hard decisions at the end of the season, even if they are in the playoffs.
John Gruden's not riding in on a white horse to be able to save this offense, okay? That's not happening, okay? Everybody thinks that, well, Gruden was here, hire Gruden. I'd love to see it. They're not going to do that. Do you guys anticipate Ronald Curry maybe taking over game day in terms of being the play caller if they continue to sputter on offense?
Yes, because at that point you have to have some sort of change that's not going to jeopardize the whole operation.
Right.
You don't want to bring in a new face and totally throw everybody out of whack, even though that's what it already seems like now.
Yes.
You don't want to complicate things more. So I think that makes sense to have a temporary replacement, but I don't think that's the long-term solution. I think, like Glenn just said, you do look elsewhere at the end of the year.
Right.
And you got to do something different this year.
I agree. At some point,
I'm not sure what it is.
You got to shake something up.
But you got to do something.
You
gotta
do.
do something.
You do.
Because that helps the player's psyche, knowing that we're not just doing the same thing.
Right. I think that's got to be the logical next step. If they continue to struggle on offense like they have, and this is not a 6-game thing. This is a 17 plus 6 games. This is a 23-game deal with this team now. Okay. Under Allen and Carmichael. I think at some point you got to shake things up. And I don't. Again, defensively, they have lulls, but they are playing top. They're playing top defense. It's the problems are on the offensive side. I don't know how you fix the offensive line, though, guys. I mean, again, just like Gruden's not riding on a white horse, the trading deadline's at the end of the month. No one is giving away quality offensive linemen, no matter how much you want to pay.
And that's why I think it's interesting some of the moves they did make in the offseason, like retaining a player like Jameis Winston, because I immediately thought to myself, at some point this season, some team's going to need a starting quarterback, and that issue is sort of arise.
Sure.
So there, you have trade bait there. But again, they have to make changes. It has to be better. And we're tired of talking about it.
Right.
The fact of the matter is we're tired of talking about it. How do you think the players feel? I'm sure they're tired of hearing about it every week, answering the same questions. What could you have done better? What are the issues? And they're not going to tell us. But again, you're going to get tired of it. Somebody's going to get tired of it in a position where it absolutely matters.
Well, Glenn, we hear all this all the time, right? Again, great leadership in that locker room. Guys are going to hold other guys accountable. If you're not doing it by week 6 now, when are you going to do it?
Yeah, and you know what I think it is too is it's like when a couple gets divorced and the stepfather comes in and tries to take care of the kids. It's just not the same.
Right.
And I think these players miss Daddy,
right.
Sean Payton.
Right.
Because everything else is kind of the same. When a new coach comes in, everything changes. They tried to kind of ease the new guy in there, and it's just not working.
Yeah, I use a substitute teacher analogy.
Same thing.
Same thing. Yeah. Now, same deal.
Yeah.
But again, but I'm gonna tell you right now, this failure does not just on the coaching staff or the players. It goes into the front office as well. And they've gotten a pass from Mickey Loomis to Parrington to Jeff Ireland. Those are the guys that selected the players. Those are the guys that manage the salary cap. And at the end of the day, you knew you had weaknesses at certain positions. And I knew you can't cover every weakness. But again, the offensive line was glaring last year. Dalton didn't have time. Winston didn't have time. And now Carr doesn't have time.
And I did not say this at the time before it happened. But looking back, Baker Mayfield would have been better than Derek Carr.
Yeah, I did.
And cheaper.
Right. He'd have been cheaper.
And younger.
I don't know if I'd have went in that direction. I said to myself, again, the best guy on the market was Carr. He had a relationship with Dennis Allen. I see why they checked all the boxes there.
A losing relationship.
But yeah,
but
and even Andy Dalton, the one start he makes at Carolina, he goes for nearly 400 and he blows up. But I think if you're going to make a change, there are two significant time gaps, and one of those start Friday morning.
Right. Yep. We'll see how this plays out again tonight. All right. Jags Saints tonight, Monday on Thursday Night Football. Quick turnaround from Sunday's loss. Not a lot of time to be able to again get out there and change things. They said they made corrections. Physically, you can't do a lot this week. I mean, and again, it's a mass unit right now on this team, and also for Jacksonville as well. Again, when you have a possibility of not having your starting quarterback.
So I think Trevor Lawrence does play.
Me too.
And I think that's a recipe for disaster for the Saints, given the fact the Jaguars are on a 3-game win streak. Their offense is playing consistent. The defense is playing solid. I mean, a league-high 15 takeaways for the Jags so far this year. 9 have come in their last 3 games. Their pass rush is great, which isn't good for a depleted offensive line. They have playmakers everywhere on the field. So, again, I don't like this matchup given what Jacksonville has and the way they're playing right now. And the Saints, I mean, they're 1-3 in their last 4 games.
You know, you were talking earlier about how nobody wants to go to the Dome tonight. If the Dome's quiet tonight, like a preseason game, I think that doesn't bode well at all. Because, I mean, they are 3-3.
Right.
It's Thursday night. You would hope the place is going nuts. And the NFL's a desperation league. Usually if a team loses a week before, they win the next week.
That's a great point.
So I think the Saints could win tonight. But if that crowd's quiet, that's going to be different.
I think the city's deflated right now. I think the expectations were more than what we're seeing, and I think they see the same thing over and over again.
And we in the media are kind of guilty of giving them that line, too. You know, I kind of believed that they were going to be much better for a little while, too. You know?
Yeah, well, I mean, on paper, you would say it. All right, we had a question from one individual watching us on our YouTube channel. If this season is a failure, what happens?
You might see Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael in Denver next year. But no, changes have to be made. And I think that you've given it that year, you've given it a chance to work out, and you've given it a chance to not work out. So far, it has not worked out. Can they turn a corner? Absolutely. But I think that changes will be made in significant positions, and I think that those are 2 names that I don't think would be in New Orleans.
Right.
Yeah, if they have a losing season or a winning season and don't make the playoffs, I think you're going to see Gail Benson have to make the first real dramatic moves of her career as the Saints owner.
The question is, how far will she go up? And I don't think she'll go into the front office. I think those guys are secure. So funny. They got the guy in Detroit who's, again, turned that franchise around, who was here, okay? And then they got the guy that's in Duval, okay, Jacksonville, that, again, that interviewed for this job, that you said, we're going to stick with our guy.
Eric Bieniemy, too. I mean, how long did that interview?
That's right.
8 hours?
8 hours. 8 hours. 8 hours. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Our guest tonight, Glenn Guilbeau of Outkick.com, Richie Mills of WGNO-TV Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. We'll hear from our underwriters. We'll come back. LSU first on tap. When we come back, we'll talk Tulane, and we'll finish up with the Pels. Don't move.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant.
Acadian Custom Shutters is locally owned and operated, specializing in interior and exterior shutters and window coverings, as well as awnings and patio covers. Acadian Custom Shutters offers American products with personal service and workmanship, serving the South Shore, North Shore, and Mississippi Gulf Coast. More information is available at 985-893-3119 or AcadianCustomShutters.com.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, tire siping, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm trying not to be negative, okay? I'm trying not to be negative. I'm trying to be positive here, but again, I am a realist. Let's talk some LSU. 48-18 winners over Auburn. They're 5-2. They're 4-1 in the SEC now. 18th in the AP, 19th in the coaches poll. Glenn, let me start with you. Since you're up in BR, defense, I want to start on defense because is it fool's gold? Or has Pete Jenkins and the defensive staff gotten together, and I don't want to say streamline things, but there seems to be some fundamental changes right now where this defense is playing much better than they did in the first part of the season.
I think so, and you know, Auburn is a bad offense, but still, you can see some improvement, and Pete Jenkins is definitely the defensive line whisperer.
Yes.
And he looks like the defense whisperer now, and you know, this is new for him. He does most of his work in the off season, going around visiting and consulting. This is the first time he's really doing it in season. And I just talked to Harold Perkins about him, and they're all kind of blown away by the guy, and he's like 84.
Yeah.
You know, but unlike the Bo Pelini defense of 2020, which this defense looked a lot like against Ole Miss, that defense never really got better. Okay, they had a couple of decent games after the disasters, but I think this defense is not going to be that bad. They're never going to be a good defense, but if they can just be average, they have a great offense, and they could win the West. They can still win the West. They can beat Alabama, I think. But the defense just has to be sound, and you know, that secondary is the guys look lost sometimes, and there's guys that shouldn't be on the team there that they got through the portal, which is kind of amazing. They need, you know, even when LSU was bad over the years, they had good DBs. You know, so they got, and he's only in his second year, Brian Kelly. He's only had one full year for a recruiting class, so I think you're going to see that change.
And
but
next year's class is supposed to be really good with defensive back.
Yeah. And you know, get away from the portal, because if you're in the portal, most of the time it's because you're a backup.
Right.
Okay, people forget about that.
You're getting cast off.
I call it the backup portal.
Right.
You can, you know, get some diamonds in there from guys who want to go to bigger schools, but for the most part, it's the backup portal. But I still think this team, because of their offense, if they can just get decent on defense, they can win the West.
Yeah. Give me your thoughts.
So I was told on Friday the main two fundamental changes that Pete Jenkins immediately implemented was he moved the line closer to the line.
Yes.
And then he also changed up their technique to make it more of an effective stance for them to get off and rush the passer. And I think you saw that. I think Auburn, while yes, they're not the best offense, I think it was a great opportunity for Pete Jenkins, who again, you know, comes in, there's no bye week, no substantial time for him to make any drastic changes.
Yes.
But you do see incremental improvement. And I say that because you've been giving up 400+ yards a week. Auburn's at 293. I think the pressure that the defensive line, the front seven, was able to get on Peyton Thorne and Robbie Ashford, I think you saw the secondary sort of thrive in that sense. Cy Alexander, who again has been picked on weekly.
But he played well, huh?
Right, he did, because I feel like
leading tackler.
Exactly, and I feel like the throws were more playable, more favorable because of the pressure the front seven was able to get. So again, just those two simple things, hearing that, you know, those had already been implemented, and then you see the success on Saturday. I think it does help them moving forward and showing that, again, they're not as far off as everyone thinks they are.
Still, a DB should not be your leading tackler.
No, I get that. I understand that. But at the same time, considering how bad that secondary has been. And look, I thought Alexander was really good at Southeastern. I thought he would be able to play Division I football. And again, he started off slow, but you see he's got the ability to play defensive back.
And the thing is, when he was really playing poorly earlier in the season, what does that tell you about the guys who aren't playing at his spot?
Yes.
How bad are they?
That's right.
Okay. So they really got
inexperienced.
Yeah, they really have to improve. And they've had some prospects, recruits that haven't developed yet either. So that's where they really got to improve. But the thing I noticed that's improved about the defense too is you don't see those wide open spaces in the middle of the field like you saw against Ole Miss. That's gotten a little better, and at times it was like they only had 10 people on the field, I thought.
Oh, no.
So they have fixed that.
Right. And you see less bust, right? And then what I also saw, especially on the defensive line, Jefferson and Sand, you saw a lot of guys that were backups that came in and made an impact. Perkins seems to be more comfortable now in this defense. Across the board, though, again, on all three levels. Now, again, hopefully that's not fool's gold and that was just Auburn. Hopefully we'll see that continue. But look, this week is kind of a misnomer. On one hand, it's Army. It's great to have Army coming in. It's going to be historic, and I think they played one time before, back in the 30s, right, with Huey Long years. But they run the triple option. You have to be a disciplined team to be able to run against the play against that triple option. Offensively, I think they're going to have an explosion as always. Defensively, I'll be interested to see again how quickly they can adjust to a different defense. The only time they're going to see this defense this year.
I think it's good work for the front seven, and I think that's an area that desperately needs it because, again, I think a triple option offense gives you that opportunity to just play forward. But Army, I mean, if you let them, they're going to punch you in the mouth, and they're going to keep punching you in the mouth until you respond. But I think this is too much for them to handle.
Right, me too. Look, you're talking about, again, an SEC team versus Army. Offensively, I guess the country's finally waking up to Jaden Daniels, huh? Finally?
Yeah, I've heard that a lot, but most of that is because they lost the first game and then they lost again.
Right.
So that's what happens. But USC got beat. So Caleb is going down a little bit. Now the Washington quarterback is back up, but if Jaden is moving up, okay, and if they can beat Alabama, no matter how bad the defense
on
may
national
end
TV,
up, that's going to really help him. But I think it's so funny that Pete Jenkins' second game back is against an option team because when he was at LSU in his prime, they always had trouble against the option.
That's right.
And Army, one thing they do different too, they throw it a little bit.
Throw it. Yeah,
after they lull you to sleep, they throw it. But I think LSU could score 50-something points offensively.
I want to ask you guys this. I was talking about this on the radio show this week. I saw Daniels at Arizona State. I saw him coming to LSU. I saw him last year, and again, we saw the shortcomings. They want to throw over the middle, more apt to run than to throw the ball. Did you envision this quickly? How quickly he's matured into a top college quarterback, and again, looks like he could play on the pro level.
Well, when he was with Herm Edwards at Arizona State, you see the unstable environment that Herm was operating in, and then you start to see, okay, well, you have a quarterback with all this potential. What could he be in the right system? Well, now he's in the right system. You see the maturity in a sense where his instincts last year would have told him, tuck it and run. Now he's staying in the pocket. When he's got time and you see him growing through the progressions, you're like, okay, he's about to deliver an accurate ball over the middle. And I just think that, the elevated play, I think outside of Michael Penix Jr., Jaden Daniels has been the best player in college football. And I think you see the maturity, and then you see him start to mix in the ability to run the football. I'm not entirely sold on the Pac-12 this year, and I think Notre Dame sort of played into that belief with their dismantling of USC. So again, I think when it's all said and done, you look at the level of competition he's playing against, and you look at the way he's doing it. I mean, the numbers he's putting up is ridiculous. I think Brian Kelly is running out of ways to describe how well he's playing. So I think Jaden Daniels arguably is the best player in college football. So to your point, could you see it coming? I don't think anybody could have saw this coming, but I think he's been a good player, and now that he's in the right system, you're starting to see him thrive.
Glenn?
I would still take Caleb Williams as the best player.
Would you really?
In college football, and the best future quarterback.
Okay,
in
on the pro level.
Ranks
See, man,
now.
I tell you what, Daniel's got size, he's got arm.
And he can run.
And that's the other thing. Again,
and he's thicker. He's thicker than Jaden.
That second gear that he's got. And again, I mentioned this on the TV show last week as well. One of the announcers mentioned about how quickly he gets up to top speed. And again, he runs past people.
Yeah.
Man, that is an attribute in the NFL that will make you a top quarterback.
And that's what worries me about Jaden, because he's still kind of thin. Right. But he's really improved remarkably, and I think Mike Denbrock is an excellent offensive coordinator at LSU, and each time I see Jaden, I'm thinking he has a better chance to succeed in the NFL. But he's going to have to alter his running skill, kind of like Joe Burrow did.
Yes.
You know, Joe you just runs straight up and never slide, and Jaden runs straight up with his head up. Now, you know, he can't do that in the pros, but he's not in the pros yet. You know, so he could. I think he's definitely going to be in New York for the Heisman.
Yeah, Diggs has really turned this thing around in terms of the running game. They used Kane, they used Williams, they used Emery last week. Man, I want to see me some Caleb Jackson, okay? 60-yard kickoff return. I think he's the second best back on. I have to give it the red shirt year on him anyway because he's playing on special teams. And no disrespect to those other three upperclassmen, but again, this is a guy that, as a 1-2 punch with Diggs, I think they could be phenomenal.
I think what makes it difficult is, you know, Logan Diggs is a true three-down back, and I think the way he's running the ball third in the SEC in rushing right now, but the physicality that he's running the ball with, I mean, he was recruited initially as a linebacker, and you saw the way he would hit opponents in high school, and so when you see him tuck it and run and look for the contact, seek it out, but what I love about how he runs, he doesn't try to run side to side, he goes forward, and that's something that you appreciate the way he's running the football, and I think he's answered a lot of questions with the running back room, but I think for good reason. You leave him out there, 3-down back, he takes the brunt of the hits. If there's a point in the season where he cannot go, then you have Caleb Jackson waiting in the wings, and you got the same force running the football.
And, you know, LSU, they look better at the running back position, there's no question, and that could lead to some more complementary football to help the defense.
Yes.
If they have moments in games or game plans that, you know, shorten the game,
yes,
that would help the defense. I could see that working in several games.
Yeah, well, again, the front seven plays well for the defense. They'll protect that back end. And I do, to your point, if they can run the football and take time off the clock, they keep that defense off the field. Again, last week, 12 penalties, 100 yards. That has been the Achilles heel for this team, just like the Saints. They continue to shoot themselves in the foot. They got to clean that up. Obviously, Army this week, and then they got the bye week, and then Alabama. And that, you know, again, and this is where the rubber hits the road at the end of this season.
It feels like a lot has happened. I mean, I know it hasn't really been, you know, a full schedule, but it just feels like this has been the busiest stretch for them already before the bye week.
Alabama's not a great team. They're a solid team, and they're getting better. But, boy, you talk about a team with some penalty issues. They can be beat, though. I think that's going to be a classic LSU-Alabama game.
Army says it 6:30. 6:30. I think it's 6:30. It's ESPN. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's SEC Network for the 6:30. The SEC Network. Thank you.
18:30 military time. Come on.
Thank you, Will. Will's in my ear telling me all the good news. All right. Tulane, 23rd in the AP, 24th in the coaches poll, 5-1, undefeated in conference play. North Texas at home, homecoming, sold out Yeoman. Tickets are more expensive to go to the game on Tulane game on Saturday than they are tonight for the Saints game. That is the ESPN 2:30 kickoff. Talk about the Greenies and what they've been able to do. Look, Memphis was a tough opponent for them historically. There was a lull between the 8:05 mark in the second quarter and the 4:32 mark in the third quarter, where again they got up 21 unanswered points, and it looked like, oh my, here it comes again. And then here comes the defense, then here comes the offense. This is a complete football team.
This was their toughest test. Memphis was the best in-conference opponent they were going to face on their schedule. They don't have SMU on the schedule. You imagine you'll see them in the AAC championship game. Watch if they play their cards right. We'll be back in Yeoman Stadium. But they are a complete football team, and I think the fact that their first two conference games, you fall down double digits. I get it. It's UAB, but Memphis was the real telltale story here that or a sign that, you know, this is a complete football team. It's a mature football team, and it's one that's finally found the run game. Mekhi Hughes, 250 yards, 3 touchdowns the last 2 games, a freshman. To see the development of the run game behind Mekhi Hughes has helped them have more of a balanced attack. When, again, you were in fear that this was going to be a one-dimensional offense. Michael Pratt was going to have to throw for 400 or 500 yards a game to win a football game. They couldn't run the ball, the offensive line. There were so many questions that Mekhi Hughes has now answered. And what I love about this scenario for him is he's running the ball effectively. He's getting better each and every week. And the schedule this year is a lot more favorable than it was last year when you were staring down a Cincinnati, a Houston, a UCF, all these top 25 opponents. You have a favorable schedule that gives him an opportunity to continue to develop. 5.6 yards a carry, I believe it was last week. Tyjae Spears, while yes, you are trying to replace him, he was averaging 6.9 last year. So again, Mekhi Hughes is getting better. That's allowed them to have a complementary approach to their offense. And And Michael Pratt, I think, is getting healthier. I think the ability for them to run the ball is not making him do so much on his leg. But again, I am a little worried because you can only play with fire so many times.
Right.
Double-digit deficits in conference play is not going to get it done.
If there is a weakness on this team, what is it? Because again, they have a punt returner in Jackson. They have a kick returner in Lewis, Shedro Lewis, who's again had a long kick return last week, call back. Defensive line is SEC. Offensive line is SEC. You've got skill position players. You got the quarterback. You thought maybe again the secondary may be a little suspect. They have not been. Where's the weakness?
It's the run game. It's going to be the run game until it continues to get better. Until you see a point where it's not going to get better than what it is right now, it's going to be the run game. The secondary is playing great. Lance Robinson is tied for second in the entire country in interceptions with 4. Jarius Monroe, he's a prospect. I mean, the front 7 is an SEC front 7.
No question about it. What really impressed me about Tulane, I was in Paris watching Tulane Ole Miss on my computer at 2:30 in the morning, and
dedicated.
Tulane, both of their lines dominated both of Ole Miss's lines. Now Ole Miss is they're kind of a finesse team, but still that's an SEC team. And they beat up Ole Miss, and they were in position to win that game until about the third quarter. You know, that game really impressed me, and I'm just really impressed with Tulane the last couple of years. I mean, they beat USC before Notre Dame did, and with LSU playing Army and some of these other teams, it's time to have LSU Tulane play every year.
Agreed.
And 1-1 with LSU playing in the Superdome against Tulane.
Yeah,
that should happen every year.
I agree.
I mean, every other year in the Dome, every other year in Tiger Stadium.
Now, I know the last time I was here, I did say they play in the Sugar Bowl. I don't think that's how it's going to shake out this year, but I wholeheartedly agree with that, mainly because I get tired of going out and about and we do so much Tulane coverage. People are like, where's the LSU coverage? I'm like, the only way we end this conversation is that they just play each other every year. But I like where Tulane's at. I think they beat Ole Miss with Michael Pratt.
Me too.
And I think that's the sentiment around Uptown right now is that they win that football game with him. So I think at the end of the year when the discussions are going on about who should be in, who should be where in the conversation, people are going to circle that game because that's a big what if.
And it shouldn't be a 1-2 either. It should be home and home, because whenever LSU's in New Orleans, it's a blast for people. You know, because there's so many LSU fans here, and they can go to the game easier here.
And people come in from out of town to be able to do it as well. There's no doubt.
And
stay in hotels.
And you know, they could even recruit a little more. I mean, but that should definitely happen now, because the NIL, the good thing about it is it's even the playing field, and we've seen that at Tulane.
I think, is it 95 games tonight on Saturday?
The portal, I should say, too.
For Willie Fritz. I heard last night that his next game he will have more games than any other head coach in the history of Tulane.
More games coached?
More games coached.
Wow, that's amazing.
Is that crazy?
Golly.
Not considering how much he's won there. I mean, you've taken a program that, you know, an athletics director at a certain school now basically said it's hard to win at, and he's winning there, and then you get the $10 million donation this year to help boost athletics, and you can really only see the trajectory of that program going up.
More games than Benny Ellender and Andy Pilney?
I'm telling you, I heard it last night. And again, I'm saying this on this TV show. I promise you I will go look at it if you want to listen to my radio show today. But again, I heard that last night on one of the sports shows. That again.
Here's another crazy stat for you. Bill Belichick is close to becoming the all-time losingest NFL coach.
Wow.
Most losses.
Right.
Yeah, but it's kind of because you also most
Cleveland.
wins as well. Most wins as well.
Go back on that. All right, let's talk Pels. By the way, North Texas win this weekend?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I think
so too.
They're 20-point favorites. They won't win by 20, but they'll win.
Yeah, I think they'll win as well. And it ought to be a big weekend over. It's going to be beautiful weather. So good to see again.
3:30 kickoff. 2:30 kickoff at Tulane.
It's so good to see people going out and seeing Tulane play again. It really is. All right, Pelicans. Did not play well in the preseason. They played well in the first half of the Orlando game. I'm talking about the starters only now, and then the last game against Orlando, the last preseason game, they played well there. They won the final game of the preseason. Preseason's fool's gold, especially in the NBA. I want to know what you think about this team. With the West getting better, did they do enough in the offseason to be able to say that if we stay healthy, we're one of the top 4 teams in the West?
The biggest headline of their offseason is the Trey Murphy injury, and that's unfortunate because, like you said, the Damian Lillard trade in itself, you know, made Portland better, and Portland is going to be competing for that play-in spot. OKC is going to be vying for a playoff spot. At full health, they can compete with the top in the West. But that's been the issue, is they're never full health. Preseason, they turned the ball over too much. The big three inconsistent together. Of course, Ingram, McCollum, and Zion, that's who I'm referencing in the big three.
Sure.
But you assume that's going to get better, but the question is forever going to be, can they stay healthy? And that's something that, we can confidently answer no, probably not. And I think that's the only thing that's going to hinder them from competing with the best and really being in that top tier discussion.
Yeah. Go ahead, Guy.
Well, I think, I think going into the offseason, they were just thinking, well, if we could just get Zion healthy.
Right.
And that's understandable, because we saw how good they were briefly last year when Zion was healthy. So that they might have put all their eggs in that basket and not thought about the rest of the team, which is understandable. But wouldn't it be a shame if Zion is really good and plays most of the season, and then you got the issues with the rest of the team? But I still think if he's as good as he was briefly last year, they're going to be in it in their division.
Right. The criticism I have is the same criticism about the offensive line. You knew you needed shooting. You got Jordan Hawkins in the draft. You knew you needed an athletic big. You went and got Cody Zeller. I understand, you're worried about the luxury tax, but then you say you're not worried about the luxury tax. You're going to be over the tax. Murphy gets injured, and you still don't go out and get someone to be able to help you with the shooting. You bring in Borrego, who wants to shoot three-point shooters, wants to shoot three-point shots, but you don't have three-point shooters.
It is confusing, but in a sense, the confidence, I think, was placed in the fact that, given the injuries they had last year, you had Trey Murphy and you had Herb Jones really elevate games in a way that I guess nobody really saw, because now they're potential superstars that you've drafted on your team. So I think Herb Jones' ability to improve behind the three-point line, Trey Murphy, the leaps and bounds that he made, I think you placed a lot of stock in that.
Yes.
And yes, you added Jordan Hawkins, who can create his own shot. He can hit the knockdown three. You sort of put all your eggs in that basket in a sense, and you didn't address other areas you need. The athletic big one, that's a little confusing to me, because Jackson Hayes, you have one on your roster, and then you got Cody Zeller.
He's a Laker now.
It's kind of like one of those, what do you know that we don't things, or what do you see that we don't? That's when you feel like, okay, they're in the situation, trust what they're doing, but it is a little confusing.
Playoff team?
Oh man, it doesn't take much to get into the playoffs in the NBA. So
not play in, play off.
Well, that's still that too. I think there'll be a playoff team this year.
Vegas placed their over-under win total at I think 44, and I think all of us on our programming picked the under, just because again, you're asking the same group of guys that have not been able to stay healthy to be able to stay healthy and be available, and they just haven't done that.
Yeah, again, you're banking on a team that has been often injured to be healthy, and you did not add pieces that can help you in case you do go down that road of injuries again. And that, to me, is the biggest mistake of the offseason. We'll see. I do believe that there's a hot seat for David Griffin in the front office. And honestly, the big three, if they don't get it right this year, I think they'll blow this thing up at the end of the season.
You could be looking at the two franchises in New Orleans blown up going into next season. It could happen. Both at the same time.
And I think if that happens, you don't just look at the coaches and the teams. You have to look at the front office, okay? And you have to look all the way up to Mickey Loomis, all the way down, okay? And I think if you don't, you're shortchanging yourself, because I think that this is something that same people are in charge. They're making the decisions, and at some point you got to be able to, again, can't say that these guys are safe and everybody else is not.
Look, if they blow it up, you can go uptown and you can get good football and good basketball this year.
There you go. Guys, thanks so much for joining us here on the program. Richie Mills, Channel 26, and also Glenn Guilbeau of Outkick.com. Great panel. All right, thanks for tuning in. So remember, so many ways to catch our program now. There's a QR code on your screen that'll take you either to my website, ericasher.com, or the WLAE-TV YouTube channel. And of course, again, set your DVR for your favorite rebroadcast, and you'll never miss the program. You catch me on the radio 4 to 6 weekdays. That's 106.1 FM. You can listen live at ericasher.com. Also, again, at Nash 106.1 FM. Their website, iHeartRadio Up, TuneIn Radio Up, our digital platforms, and our podcast is on the Anchor Spotify podcast, but on all major podcasting platforms. Search Inside New Orleans Show with Eric Asher, and you'll find that. Special thanks to the underwriters who make this show possible. Each and every one of those underwriters, we appreciate them. Please support our underwriters. And of course, again, the folks here at WLAE-TV who produce our program do a fantastic job. Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Logan Graffia, also again, Alex Chacon, and our director, William Hill. I'm Eric Asher. Thanks so much for tuning in. For Glenn Guilbeau and Richie Mills, have a great week. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.